now we can open the floor so everybody can join. Okay, so now we have 3 speeches, and Sushil, Ichal, and Shamini. Then we have a list of panel speakers, and then order of the panels, as you see in the program. First one with Angkhana as a newly elected co-chairperson, and then second one is Basil. As you know, Basil has been championing this campaign, UDP-MA, you know. So I'd like to invite Basil to introduce our campaign. It can be our, of course, this is our common campaign. And then the rest, the panelists, you can respond to the 3 keynote speeches and also this campaign, you know, so we can comment. So this is not the place where you speak about your own problem. You have enough problems, you know. You know more or less what problem you are facing. So no need to repeat what problem, you know, the details, you know. But it's a time, this summit is to have a common agenda, common action plan, and build common strategies, all right? So panelists are the maximum 5 minutes. Okay, now we have 10 minutes keynote speeches. First, may I invite Sushil to give us the first speech? Okay, Sushil, unmute. We cannot hear you.
Let me first, congratulate Mr. Anpa, Arnon Nampa, for he became, we need to welcome him also, because the congratulations for his award. He received this Human Rights Award, very prestigious Gwangju Human Rights Award. So I just welcome him in this group and also congratulate him. I'm Sushil Pyakurel from Nepal, and I started my social work in 1970, and till now I'm involved in various human rights related activities, and sometimes I took part in the government also, but I resigned because of my dispute on some of the human rights issues with the government office of the president. I was advisor to the president. So we are meeting here as a group of laureate. So we can see that why we are meeting and what is the purpose of this. So let me talk about the significance of the May 18 spirit, because we need to uphold the spirit of the May 18 movement. And we are the recipient of that award also. So there is an obligation also. I take this like that. Before I go to the significance of the May 18 spirit, let us look at the present context of the world. How the world is now, we are saying. Decay of democratic governments, whether elected or not elected, every government, you can see that the governance is decaying. Rising ultra-nationalism, especially we have seen during the pandemic, ultra-nationalism, racism, populism, which is producing demagogue. This is very sad. Even a democratic country, now the demagogues are being elected and they are ruling. Emerging a Cold War psyche among the powerful nations using militarization and military buildup that we have seen. And then, rising intolerance and divisive policy of ruling elites causing religious and social conflict among the people. Rising ideological and religious fundamentalism. So these are the main, the context, the present day. Under the current pandemic situation, further danger to the ideal of democracy have been exposed. While rulers of all political leaning have used the pandemic to further their own interest domestically, and the rich countries are violating the right to life of marginalized people, and poor countries obstructing the fair distribution of vaccine internationally. We have seen that some of the Western countries, the Europeans and Americans, they have stocked the vaccines more than they need. And the third world countries, people are crying for that. So in this situation, our dream of equality and access to justice have faced a huge setback. These are the significant why we are coming together as a Laureates, network. What is the spirit of May 18 movement then? The May 18 movement was a revolutionary social movement, as President Moon Jae-in says, movement sowed the seed of democracy. Actually, in the Korea, if you look at the democracy, the seed, which is the May 18 movement in Gwangju. So correctly, President Moon Jae-in has said that, hence the seed of democracy in Korea germinated through Gwangju uprising. The Gwangju uprising against military dictatorship is a symbol of resistance against any form of autocratic regime. It symbolized the aspiration of masses for freedom, peace, and democratic system, solidarity, and collective action. The Gwangju uprising has inspired the people of many countries of Asia and beyond to rise against autocratic and military regime. My country, Nepal, as well as countries like Burma, Bangladesh, Thailand, and Taiwan have taken inspiration from the May 18 spirit. The Gwangju Prize for Human Rights and Exception for Prize winners, the May 18 Foundation was established by the entire people who participated in the movement, victims and their families. Actually, the origin of the foundation is the movement itself. Hence, it is bound by the spirit of the Gwangju uprising, because the foundation was created by the victims and the money was coming from the victims. So, this is the spirit of the Gwangju uprising, I think. The prize is the recognition of the contribution made by individuals and organizations for the cause of democracy and human rights, justice, and peace. Because of the value-based nature of organization, the recipient of the prize has moral obligation. We have the moral obligation, I take it like that, to abide by the spirit and value of the prize. To fulfill the moral duties, most of the laureates are working on different areas, individually and collectively. With the support of May 18 Foundation, some areas of their work include, I found that it include, we are already getting support from May 18 Foundation, participating in the solidarity meeting, campaign and action activities have done already in the past. Statement and message. We have issued a statement of, on Myanmar when there was military takeover. Moral support to the laureates facing jail term by meeting them in the custody, like Irom Sharmila in India, in Manipur, and Jatupat in Bangkok. We went there to meet them. Regional and sub-regional meeting in different issues on the initiation of laureates. We held a lot of meetings in different parts where the laureates were participating in that meeting. Joint statement of laureates in issues such as military takeover in Myanmar, I've already mentioned that. Now the time has come to institutionalize the effort. We need to institutionalize our effort of the laureates. Now there are many individuals and organizations who have received this prestigious human rights prize. This has strengthened our team and expanded the reach of May 18 movement. So we have expanded the reach. We have a global, we become the global, spirit and the global organization, because our laureates are everywhere from the globe, I think. So this has strengthened our team and expanded the reach of May 18 movement, of course. To facilitate our collective efforts to respond to the issue, I strongly feel the need for networks of the laureates against the background. The network of laureates of the Gwangju Prize for Human Rights, NLG, that's why it has been created. We have just adopted its TOR. So what do we expect from NLG then? What we do? It is in the TOR already. We have already endorsed the TOR. But what I think is that the NLG aim to contributing to the defense and promotion of democracy and human rights internationally through solidarity action according to the spirit of May 18 democratic movement. International solidarity action related to democracy, human rights, peace, and justice. Active participation and promotion of the annual Gwangju Democracy Forum and other related activities of regional and international nature we are participating in that forum always, providing expertise and advice for various programs of the May 18 Foundation. Of course, we need to support the May 18 Foundation and advise how to strengthen, how to, spread the values and principles of May 18 movement in the world. So, providing advice on the international activities of the May 18 Foundation. So, what we expect from the May 18 Foundation itself? Facilitate the activities of NLG as a secretariat. Now we have emerged as a new forum. So we have expectation that May 18 Foundation will work as a secretariat to support our activities, help establish network and alliance with regional and sub-regional networks, organizations such as Asia Democracy Network, Forum Asia, and of course there are other regional and sub-regional organizations. We need to work with them. So these are my few points to present to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sushil, for your keynote speech. As you know, we have several regional NGOs working on human rights and democracy. We have, of course, we have Asia Human Rights Commission, the Basil, as one of the laureates of the Gwangju Prize for Human Rights. And also some of you also are involved with the ADN or Forum Asia and the many other movements. But particularly, we decided to invite the two leading regional NGOs, ADN and Forum Asia. They have been the long-standing partner of May 18 Foundation. So I'd like to invite Ichal first to give us the keynote speech from ADN perspective. What are the challenges? How can we work together? It's not only among NLG members, but the regional partner organization. Ichal, you have 10 minutes, please.
Thank you, Anselmo, for the time and opportunity to bring in ADN in this very fantastic idea. I would like to congratulate these efforts and welcoming the group of the laureates of the Gwangju Award. And then also I would like to congratulate for the new awardee, which is Kun Arnon Nampa from the Thailand. I would like to make like a disclaimer first, because soon after my speech, I have to leave due to the road conditions. And we have to reach the safety shelters before the dark. Of course, everybody already knows about the ADNs and how we're trying to do so far. I am the third Secretary General after Hun Shik-shin and Anselmo. So I'm inherited very huge ideas of the Korean movements that we try to spread over Asia. So again, hi for senior, mentor, guru, and all dignitaries person here, all the laureate of the Gwangju Awards. So I just wanted to highlight a few things quickly from the perspective of the Asia Democracy Networks to the emerging democracy challenge in Asia, and of course touch a little bit in the world and focus concern on Myanmar. So looking for democracy index, at least there are two indications that clearly mention about the worrying trend of democracy regressions. Let's taking the economic index or EUI. It's really stated only 3 countries, mainly Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, that still considered as a full democracy, while the rest of Asia is marked as a flawed hybrid regime and authoritarians. At the same time, Civicus also highlights only Taiwan that assessed as open Pacific space. So I'm quite like a supportive if these Gwangju laureates or members or organizations focus not only in Myanmar, but also in many places in Asia, including Bangladesh, Cambodia, Philippines, or maybe soon Sri Lanka will join us. So I would like to bring to the highlights. The change have occurred very quickly and drastically. In recent years, many countries have changed to become increasingly aggressive. Even in many places in Asia, it has become a dangerous place for civil society and the media to operate, to carry the duties and the functions. They face retaliation in the form of arrest, disappearance, killing of the state-sponsored institution or by militia. But then again, unfortunately, we fail to recognize the regression of democracy actually started a decade ago, but right now it's become more severe. I think all the reality show no significant or efficient attempt in pushback from the pro-democracy groups in the national and regional level has been proved to stop these regressions at the moment of times because of the limitations and inadequacy resources to confront massive attack. At the same time, of course, the pandemic is exacerbating the situations. From our mappings, I think we recognize at least 3 areas that are seriously concerning and then making the democracy, the deteriorations is even more flourish. First, I think the rise of populism, authoritarianism. Second, the increase of non-democratic power. At the same time, also weakening of the pro-democracy leadership, which is showing by the United States and of course the European allies. And the third is the fundamentalism and then political identity that strongly interconnected between them. Then of course, the media is helped in proliferations, including pandemic controls. So the populist politics has started to undermine democratic values actually a decade ago. We can see how actually the Thaksin election during 2004 and continue with the election of Modi 2014, RT 2016, Donald Trump, and of course recently Rajapaksa. I think the pro-democracy failed to really narrate it, or maybe the pro-authoritarianism successful to build narrative by using technology and also supporters of the China and also Russia as a pro-democracy country. The recent coup in Myanmar that followed by brutal killing shocked the world. And I guess the civil society begin to realize and began the combined strength variously to respond. This is the opportunity, the excellence model to respond to Hong Kong, Philippines, India, Bangladesh, Cambodia, and all the countries that now under suppression. They have a spark. The spark has been igniting, and we shall continue to cultivate the movements. Then lastly, from the ADN perspective about the role of the network of the laureates of Gwangju Prize for Human Rights and Special Prize or NLG, I think as a network or individual, the laureate should be continuous to voice and organize the movement to confront the regressions in all democracy fronts. Each of the laureate can convince or build pressure to national and global governments to increase intervention in response to the threat from non-democratic power. And then secondly, the laureate can take a lead regional activities, lobby, or advocacy to convince Asian donors, countries, or business sectors to provide funds and more intervention to the ongoing regression in Asia. I'm standing here in the border of Myanmar together with one member of the Forum Asia. We witness the Burmese IDPs or refugee that fleeing from the war for the safety their survival is really depending on the people-to-people helps. Mostly the people from the border of Thailand supplying food, supplying relief, medicines, because of the people donations. The question is, where is the government? And then in my expectation from my assessment here, they will be still surviving based on the people-to-people supply for the next 2 months. So the laureates and ABNs can help. And then with using all your strengths or your attentions, try to help people to people model rather than we really relying to the governments, especially national organizations that sometimes is blocked by the political. So finally, ABN and its member network, we welcome synergies and join forces with the network of Gwangju laureates in these endeavors, as we try to continuously to find a way in promoting the campaigns to confront democracy regulations more efficiently and more unity. Thank you. And then Aluta continua, and in solidarity, Anselmo. Over back to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Ichal. So next, I'd like to invite Shamini from Forum Asia, relatively new face in this democracy and human rights work in the region. Shamini, you have 10 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Anselmo. Just sound check that everyone can hear me okay? Okay, very nice. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me to speak with you today and address this session as part of the Gwangju Democracy Forum. It's such a pleasure to be on board and to have a discussion with you today. As Anselmo said, I joined Forum Asia in March of last year, and just before the pandemic decided to go global. So that's why I haven't made it yet to to Gwangju, but hopefully that will be corrected soon. Just to paint a picture of the human rights situation in Asia, Ichal has talked about how the situation of authoritarianism and the rise of populism in the region is increasing. And this obviously has a direct impact to how we want to further the human rights cause in the region. And we see this as being as equally bleak. Numerous forms of democratic backsliding is occurring. And in recent times, we have also witnessed multiple crackdowns on fundamental freedoms and human rights by governments. This points to an increasingly worrying trend of growing authoritarianism, and it's hindering our efforts, the efforts of civil society organizations to advance human rights in the region. We have also seen a surge in newer tactics being employed by governments. And recently, we have seen the use of internet shutdowns to isolate communities and prevent information from being shared. We have also seen the introduction of vaguely formulated fake news laws. Forum Asia has repeatedly also said that governments are exploiting the ongoing pandemic, introducing disproportionate measures in the pretext of protecting public health. Human rights and fundamental freedoms remain severely under attack across Asia, especially in these trying times. Furthermore, these human rights abuses and violations are often worsened by socio-economic realities of millions in the Asian region. Women in particular face numerous threats as they are forced to navigate through patriarchal structures as well as restrictive gender norms. In addition, the vulnerability of women and children are heightened by organized human trafficking networks in the region. Evidently, the interplay of political and socio-economic factors reveal glaring trends of human rights violations and abuses across the region. We have seen in recent times, and this has been debated at length at the opening of the GDF, together with some of the points that has been raised here as well. We have seen the grave human rights violations committed by the Myanmar military. Unprecedented it is in scale. The civil disobedience movement, which has taken to the streets to peacefully call for the restoration of democracy and the release of political prisoners, have faced violence, arbitrary detention, and for many, torture and death. The civil society organization, the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners of Burma, has documented that 780 people have been killed by the junta since February 1st, And in the same time period, at least 4,899 arrests have been made. Many of those taken by the government remain disappeared, while the junta continues to consolidate its power by obliterating all spaces for dissent. Relatedly, on this note, Forum Asia will be hosting a session on Myanmar tomorrow at 4 p.m. Korean time, and do join us for the session, which is titled Democratization Movement in Myanmar and International Solidarity. This is where we're going to unpack the Myanmar situation even further. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, Duterte's war on drugs has led to the relentless abuse of power by the police and the extrajudicial killings of thousands of suspected drug users. Human rights defenders, civil society, and critics continue to be targeted by state-sanctioned terrorist tagging, endangering their lives and promoting an environment of fear and impunity. In addition, the region is also grappling with discrimination on both institutional and social levels. In the case of Afghanistan, hundreds of civilians were injured and killed in the past year. The ethnic Hazara community has endured persecution and discrimination throughout history. Today, the oppressed minority group is said to receive little to no protection from the government, exposing them to acts of racially motivated violence. Government forces, the Taliban and other insurgent forces have continued the violence. In similar fashion, we witnessed a discriminating regime targeting religious minorities in India. The Citizenship Amendment Act presents a barrier to Muslims on an institutional level. Such instances of discrimination, when codified institutionally, infringes upon the rights of millions across the country and leaves echoes within the South Asia region itself. As we seek ways to strengthen our efforts to protect human rights in Asia, we would like to take the opportunity to urge the South Korean government to ensure its domestic and foreign policies comply with international human rights standards. It must strive to present a credible example to the rest in the region by ensuring that fundamental freedoms are respected and fulfilled in the country, and by aligning its foreign policy with the highest standards of human rights. And we believe that South Korea can be a leader in this respect. One way in which to do this is by pushing for and supporting efforts towards accountability for human rights violators in the region. The South Korean government can also work to ensure that its engagement with other Asian countries, covering both political and trade agreements, are underpinned by the non-negotiable standards of human rights. Further, strengthening domestic mechanisms within South Korea itself and ensuring their independence is also key. This extends to the strengthening and independence of its own National Human Rights Commission to ensure continuous support to effectively implement its mandate in advancing human rights in the country, to be a positive example for Asia. Finally, forums like the GDF must continue efforts towards establishing safe spaces for civil society to learn, support, and find refuge in one another. Further, the network of former Gwangju laureates can amplify the often marginalized voices of civil society, particularly the most vulnerable, just like what you're doing today. Thank you for the commitment to continue fighting for human rights everywhere. At a time when there is increased pressure for civil society and human rights defenders to keep silent about ongoing violations, you are not. We urge you to continue your efforts to push forth a human rights agenda at country level and at the global stage. Rest assured, you have Forum Asia's support. We look forward to working with you as we propel our efforts in advancing human rights in the region. And as a final note, my congratulations to Arnon Nampa, as well as the latest laureate of the Gwangju Prize. It is a pride and a privilege that for me, really to see that he has been accorded the award, and he's done so much for the pro-democracy movement in Thailand, and I'm glad to see him receive this recognition. Thank you very much. I'm afraid I will also have to leave shortly for a meeting, but before that, I will be here for the next few minutes. Anselmo, back to you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Shamini, for your valuable input, very inspiring the messages, and also challenging, the content. We have now received the 3 keynote speeches, and now the floor is open for panelists. So this is a public session. So I'd like to ask all the panelists to introduce yourself. It's not among ourselves because people may not know who you are. So please introduce yourself, your work, and also your link to the May 18 Foundation, and then you can make an intervention. And then in response to 3 keynote speeches, and also especially the Sushil introduced the key main points in the TOR of NLG. So how we can do together, So we don't here is so not a place to analyze all the issues, but action, how can you build a common strategies? So first, I'd like to invite Angkhana, who is a newly elected co-chair of NLG. So Angkhana, you have a floor, please.
Thank you, Anselmo, and good evening, everybody. Firstly, I want to thank all of you to trust me as the first co-chairperson. And for myself, actually, I'm the victims of enforced disappearance in Thailand, and I run the human rights organization called Justice for Peace Foundation. I used to be a former commissioner, National Human Rights Commission Thailand. Sometimes or many times I work and cooperate with the parliament, with the government. I join a lot of committee with the parliament and also some committee under the government. So that I can work on a lot of campaigns on human rights in my countries. And firstly, regarding to today anniversary of May 18, I really want to send my warm congratulations to the Gwangju citizens for this very special day. And for this year and since last year, I think that we are under the outbreak of the COVID-19. That's is very difficult situation for all of us. And even on this day, that the outbreaks remain uncontrolled and it claims millions of lives, challenging lives of people around the world regarding to their nationalities, gender, ethnic, or classes. The pandemic also shown us the unequal society. It's exposed again the change between the rich and the poor, stigmatized and discrimination. And Thailand is similar to many countries in Asia and the region that are under militarization. After the coup in 2014, freedom of expression, peaceful assembly, and the right to fair trial are really restricted regarding to a loss of draconian laws and regulations. In February of this year, we are shocked by the military coup stand in Myanmar, followed by the uprising of Myanmar people. Many things happen similar to Thailand, and now the situation of Thai-Myanmar border is really challenging for Thai people, Thai and Myanmar people. Actually, at the border, we are like brothers, but the situation of conflicts and violence is difficult to send the humanitarian assistance to people in Myanmar, and a lot of people now they become the IDP or maybe refugees and asylum seekers. And I think that right now the movement of people uprising in Myanmar, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Thailand, Bangladesh, India, and many countries shown us that people cannot tolerate and resilient to militarization, dictatorship, and non-democracy. Last but not least, I would like to thank all of the laureates for you are working so hard and tirelessly in your respective countries And I think that I really appreciate that now finally we can start a network of us, of all the laureates, and I believe that the network will make us stronger and more solidarity, and it will bring us together to be the voice of the voiceless who struggle for democracy, human rights, and justice. And it is not only in the region, but also in worldwide. And I want to thank the May 18 Foundation to be the secretariat for the network. And I think that we will work more closely in the future. Yeah, and for all the colleagues, the laureates, if you have any concern or if you want to raise of some special situation or many concerns, please do let us know. I think that now we can have like some concrete movement again. Yeah, I thank you much.
Thank you, Angkhana. Once again, congratulations on your co-chairmanship. As you know, we have about 30 laureates in the last almost 20 years, but we have 3 laureates from Thailand. Of course, Angkhana was the first one, but last 2 this year and also 4 or 5 years ago, that shows the situation in Thailand has been deteriorating. And we lost Thailand military coup 5 years ago, and they had a spillover effect, like a domino effect. So your neighboring countries, Cambodia, and now Myanmar. So somehow, as the Ichal stress, we have to stop. We have to miss that opportunity. So I think somehow we have to make sure that so no more spillover. So that's why the Myanmar is not only one country. It's like a testing, for all. This is one of the motivation that I think some of you propose to create a network. That we have to bring all the forces together to stop, to know more, spillover. So thank you for your suggestion and the leadership and the inspiring speech. The next move to the Basil Fernando, and he is the second, the laureate of Gwangju Prize for Humanity, 2002, right? If I'm not mistaken, 2001 or 2002. The first one was, as you know, Janana Guzmao from Timor-Leste. And then Basil has been leading not only the human rights movement in Asia, also inspiration for May 18 Foundation. He has been helping a lot to establish May Foundation program. And also recently, the UDPMA, very important, very timely global campaign. So Basil, you have a floor to introduce and also your response to Tino's speeches, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm Basil Fernando from the Asian Human Rights Commission. That is what I represent. I think the short time I have, I rather like to pose some questions because you mentioned that I received the award in 2001, I think. When I look back for the last 20 years, human rights situation in Asia has degenerated and not improved. Much more degenerated than we ever expected. So I think a spirit with which we should look for a common work is, I believe, is to ask what is the cause of these failures. We must begin with the not in a triumphalist way what we are doing and what we have been doing and all this usual talk, but to ask where we have failed. And we are doing this at this moment, the saddest moment for South Asia. Today, every house in India and also other South Asian countries, thought is about whether we will survive tomorrow. And the death is just around the place. And everybody's main concern is that. Why? Why did we go that way? Why some countries were able to take some measures and prevent their, limit their problem, but we didn't because there was a management failure. Human rights problem is to examine the management failures of our country. The rule of law and the basic structure that were there degenerated, and I'm sorry to say, even the human rights movement did not do much. This is not a subject human rights movement is very concerned about. They will talk about this person's right, that person's right, all that. And systems collapse. System cannot function. And that we have not done work enough to understand. So I raised 4 questions. I hope for you to think for questions that I think about. They are very short. I will just read the questions. If those who gave up their lives in 1980 for Korean democracy were to take a trip to the countries of Asia, particularly poorer countries, how would they want to contribute to the struggle of these countries? Will they very happily say, you know, we died, everything is fine? Or as they did in their critical hour, will they not challenge us that you are not doing enough? Second question, can people who were fortunate to have brought up in affluent countries ever understand the conditions of people in poorer countries? When you ask why we couldn't find solutions to the Myanmar problem, Thailand problem, Bangladesh problem, Sri Lanka problem, all this, we must ask who led this human rights movement? It was the developed country people's ideas that we just borrowed and tried to work out. Did we work out our own strategies, our own analysis? If not, how can local movements grow? 3, if those who are determined human rights, those who determine human rights policies and practices globally are persons from affluent countries, will they ever understand the human rights needs of the poorer countries? 5, is there no way for human rights advocates of poorer countries to get a hearing within the global human rights community? Why is the dialogue between the two so difficult? 5, what will those who gave up their lives to democracy in Gwangju in 1980 think of the global human rights movement today and civil society groups working today? Globally, there is a crisis of democracy. There is a crisis on basics that we stood for everywhere. And the worst is the poorer countries. We must do human rights in a different way. And otherwise, another 10 years we will get back here, and we may celebrate the another anniversary. But the world will go, and our countries will go even worse. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Basil, for putting very challenging questions for our critical reflection. Could you please share your text so that we can use your text for our proceedings later on?
Sure,
and I'm sure you can get all the information about UDPMA in the May 18 Foundation website.
Just one little word. We have put all this into a separate statement, and we shared with you all and the whole globally today on how to celebrate Gwangju uprising. I hope you will get a chance to read it.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very much for your input. So let's move to the next speaker. As you know, this year, in addition to Arnon Nampa from Thailand, we have also special prize for watchdog documentary makers from Indonesia. So let me see, Andy Panka, are you in the room? Okay, he made the speech during the ceremony. And then let's move to the next one. And then now this is according to year of the the Gwangju Prize for Human Rights. So now Lenin, 2007, right? It's almost 13 years ago. Wow. The Lenin, please share your reflection.
So good evening to everybody, and also thank you for the opportunity, and also the congratulations of the Gwangju uprising, which is the one of the biggest hope, not for the Asia, also for the world. I endorse the whole idea of Sri Basil Fernando ji, because which is important. And before many years, Nelson Mandela also talked about that. We have a lot of extraordinary international standards, norms, and the laws, but the biggest problem on the grassroots level, the change on the grassroots level. And if you want to change on the grassroots level, I'm going to talk about two things. One, what our observation, and second, what we are going to support. You look at always when we are going to analyze, we need to understand there is a cognitive problems, cognitive powers, cognitive understanding, and also the contextuals and their linkages. Without analysis, because I'm a doctor, without diagnosis, it is impossible to create any treatments. And we are always hiding diagnosis, right wing also, sometimes ourselves also, and many people. We don't want to go into the deeper way to understand the factors and the cognitive and contextuals both. And the cognitive problem is there is a mind of caste and the patriarchy, especially in the South Asia, which is very bad, and this is creating a militaristic traditions of the hegemonic masculinity, which is using by the war. And you look in the Manusmriti in my country, they are against the education of the girls and the Dalits and the tribals and the OBC, and also the women. And what happened with the Malala when she started to promote education, they wanted to gun down, and they tried it. So it is important to understand without the eliminating of this, and this mindset always based on the culture of impunity and culture of silence, which very much described by Basil Fernando. I learned from him, and we need to understand that. Also, this contextual problem, neoliberal economy, they came and they started to making a marriage with the India. And why I'm talking about the India, every 6 people in the world is the Indian. And this Indian RSS people, when I received the Gwangju Human Rights Award, when I talk about the RSS, people laughed on me. And nowadays RSS captured India, and RSS talk about Hitler, RSS talk about Mussolini. If the Mussolini and Hitler is going to through India, you look what is going to happen. It is not Germany, man. And it is going to be a very different game plan. And they are more dangerous people, more dangerous than Al-Qaeda. We need to understand this Hindu fascist forces are the more dangerous than anybody. So that is the most important things, because we born in upper caste community. I born in Banaras. I studied in Haridwar. I understand their game plan. They are very dangerous, smart people, very shrewd. So for that reason, this Modi came. And they have the alliance with the corporate, and they are creating the corporate fascism. Adani and Ambani also want to culture of impunity. They want to the all type of economic, political impunity, all impunity. And the remnant of the caste system and patriarchy also want to impunity, and they want to create their situation. Because what happened, how the RSS came, when the Ambedkar and Jyotiba Phule, Savitriba Phule start to fight back against the caste system and the patriarchy, then this Chitpavan Brahmins clan of the upper caste Brahmins, they established the RSS, learn from the Hitler and Mussolini, the Superman theory. So it is important, and I am in Varanasi. Big fight is going on Banaras, because without capturing Banaras, it is impossible to capture the Sanatan religion and the Hinduism. And we are telling Banaras is not the place of the Hinduism, it is the place of the diversity and the pluralism. And for that reason, it is important to, I will support from here. I have my networks. After all conspiracies and the manipulations, we have the mass base, and we have our own funding. So we are not bothered about any external funding and all. And we are fighting with them. And so in this reason, I will support and through here as a grassroots level, as a earthworms to fertilize the lands for the better world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lenin. I confirm, two keynote speakers, they highlight, the problem of the religious fundamentalism, which is very clear in the Indonesia case. I'm sure in the Bangladesh too, right? So now, Adil, now you have a floor, please share with us your reflection and then proposals. Okay, yeah, now it's okay. It's okay, yeah.
It's me?
Yes, okay, yeah, Adil, your chance.
Yeah, I thank you very much for taking this initiative. And it's great that the laureates will have a platform to interact and to discuss how to move forward. Basil has already laid the ground, and I fully support the points he has mentioned. And this is important for Asia, particularly in our region, South Asia, which is burning. And it's important to address the issues. I am very much optimistic that with our debates and with our initiatives, we will be able to move forward. And when the global institutions are failing, when even the UN institutions are failing, when the neoliberalism has also failed and we are seeing a kind of paradigm shift, it's important to mobilize people's power. It's important to have our own network so that we can address the issues, at the same time suggest the way out. And that's why it's important. And I'm very happy to be with so many friends. And I thank you, Anselmo, for taking this lead. Thank you very much. You are muted, Anselmo. We can't hear you. Cannot hear you. Cannot hear you, Anselmo.
Okay, is it okay? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about the technical problem. Thank you for your very concise and critical intervention. I'm sure that we have, the Lenin, Basil, and Adil are very the leading human rights defenders South Asia. I hope we can really build, the stronger solidarity in the region. But I would like to propose to change the order of speaking. So we have one more person from South Asia, the Nanda Manatunga from Sri Lanka. I don't know whether he's in the room. So maybe he can speak first so that we can complete this first South Asia and then we move to the Southeast Asia. Is it Nandana in the room? Or maybe not now. Then let's move to the next one. So now we move to the Southeast Asia and Singapore and then Malaysia. Shumei, are you ready to speak? Shumei, are you okay? Yeah, please introduce yourself first and then your...
Okay. Actually, yes, I'm from Singapore, but I actually received the Gwangju Special Prize on behalf of my husband, Sumbat, who was disappeared. Sumbat is Laotian. He was disappeared in 2012. I will be very, very brief. I think, Basil, thank you so much for challenging and raising those questions. I think, you're right. The human rights violations have increased, repressions have increased, as we have heard. And we, the grassroots movements have actually become weakened over time. And I myself keep asking, how can we, human rights activists, many of us, some of us have bigger movements, others are isolated. How can we continue our struggle? The Gwangju movement, when they were struggling, they had no international support, very little. They were doing it. Mothers, housewives, grandmas were on the streets supporting the movement. And they won because they were determined to win. Right now, we are so isolated. Our movements are very isolated, both within countries and across the regions. And the pandemic has made it worse. Now we have the situation, we work from home. Our children have to learn on the internet. They cannot even go to school. People have been losing jobs, businesses have closed, and economic concerns have become much more paramount to the people who are poor, even to grassroots activists. Many of them have withdrawn because they cannot put food on the table. And then, of course, they have to struggle with the risk of facing the pandemic. So I think, Basil, you put very right questions to challenge us. I don't have answers, certainly, but I'm thankful that you let us, at least you challenge us to rethink. I think we need new strategies, both as activists and as movements, because the authoritarian, whether they are governments or they're corporations, they have gotten together. It's like dictators of the world have united, whereas we, human rights activists, have found our unification and our networking becoming weaker and weaker. So I think we need to rethink our strategy. How do we use the new technologies? Now we have Zoom, but frankly, I hate Zoom, okay? I would rather see you face to face, we sit down and meet. Right now, there are so few meetings which can take place, in fact, none. And we have to depend on Zoom or Skype or whatever. And frankly, people of my generation hate it because to manage the bloody internet is a bloody challenge. I don't know which button to click. Sometimes it's fit out and fit in, I don't know what to do. So it's really, we have to find new ways. And I think we have to challenge our young people. We were young, we're getting old. Anselmo, I'm sorry, you're still young. We are getting old, frankly. Basil, you have to also agree with me, right? We need to challenge our young people. Our young people are not so interested in grassroots movements, in human rights movement. There are, we are encouraged by what we see in Hong Kong, what we see in Thailand, and now hopefully also in Myanmar. But see what happened to Hong Kong. I mean, the Hong Kong movement really breaks my heart. And to see the few Thais still on the streets, but it's so easy to wipe them out. I think we have to find new strategies. And so I will leave a few thoughts like that. And to thank the May 18 Foundation for organizers. Let's challenge ourselves to rebuild and to move forward. We are swamped, we are pushed back. We have absolutely, it's quite depressing. So I leave it. I'm sorry, I'm not such an optimist as Adil. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Shamini. So I think not pessimistic, we are very realistic, so we want to confront reality. So that's why we are very realistic. I want to also give you the good news. We are not the only one. I'm with 6 young activists in the room. You may not see them, but they are in the room, in the conference hall. They are the young students of the mains program. Are you familiar with the mains program of Songong University? They are the civil society activists from different countries. This is a tradition of the mains program. All the mains students, they come to Gwangju during the week of May 18. So they are with us today. They are challenging us, but we are also challenging them. So this is an intergenerational dialogue. Okay, just want to let you know, so they are here with us. So let's continue. The next one is Thomas Fan from Malaysia, the Bossy too. So I was to your office several years ago, Maria Chin and some of your members. But could you please introduce Bossy too? Not everybody is familiar with the Bossy too, Okay, you have a floor, please.
Thank you, Anselmo, very much, and hello to everyone. I dare not say good evening because we are in different time zone, But over here it is evening, 7:20 p.m. Well, Bersih stands for is the local language of Malay for clean. So Bersih champions clean and free elections for the past 15 years. And over the past 15 years, we have seen the country gone through several rounds of changes, electoral changes, which finally led to about 3 years ago, a change in the federal government for the first time in Malaysia. As a nation, Malaysia, since its independence from the British in 1957, it had only one coalition government. But for the first time, after many years of struggles and democratic push, the people of Malaysia chose a new government 3 years ago. And that we thought was the dawn of a new era for Malaysia's democracy, and people look at Malaysia as the beacon of hope for democracy in this Southeast Asia, at least. But that was very short-lived because a year and 2 months ago, there was a political coup. It wasn't a military coup. Thank goodness, Malaysia is one of the very few countries in this region, Southeast Asia, where the military did not have a history of being in power. Unlike many of our neighbors who had to literally sacrifice many lives to gain a foothold for democracy. Malaysia didn't have to, because we never had that history where the military was in control. Having said that, it was nonetheless a coup, a bloodless coup, but because what happened was that a block of the government member of parliament, they defected, or rather they joined with the opposition who was booted out at the last election to form a new government. So the new government collapsed, and along with it, our democratic space. And to make matter worse, I think what happened in Malaysia was, in a way, what's that word? A picture of what happened globally to democracy. There was a pushback, and to exacerbate the matter, the COVID pandemic became global. And from March onward, because this political coup took place end of February, the new government installed on the 1st of March. The lockdown happened on the 18th of March. So the new government basically became authoritarian, locked down the whole country, pushed back human rights and the space for democracy. So we had to basically rethink our role in the new environment. I think this is true probably for democracy worldwide. I like what Basil said just now. We have to be honest and look at what is wrong. What is the cause of this failure, where we, even before the pandemic, we have seen democracy being pushed back because people are asking the basic question: what's so great about democracy? What's so great about human rights? When we see that countries without democracy seems to be more orderly and more prosperous even, and they seems to be able to deliver what people need most of all. So I think one of the big challenge for us as democracy fighters is that we have to ask that honest question. What is wrong with democracy? Are we not able to deliver what people need most of all, the bread and butter or the roti or the whatever we eat as our staple food on the table, you know, or it's just some elite ideals that some of us believe in. No, democracy is still the only system of government that honors and respect human dignity, the right of everyone, regardless of their status in life. You know, they have a voice under democracy. All other system, you know, whatever you call it, monarchy, militarism, or, you know, are ruled by the elite, the small group, where the rest of the masses have no voice. So I think for that reason, we are unashamed in defending democracy, but we have to provide solutions that say that it is indeed superior, not just in respecting human rights, but also delivering what human needs, the economic needs. And especially right now, in a time of economic challenges due to the pandemic, as streaming has said, everyone is suffering. The last thing on people's mind is human rights or democracy. I think that is the challenge that all of us activists on the ground are facing. You know, we try to tell people it's important, democracy. Your parliament, by the way, Malaysia's parliament has been suspended using COVID as the excuse. You know, everything can go on except parliament. You know, so it is a boon for authoritarian all around the world, and Malaysia is no exception. So we have to find new strategy using the new platform technology that is around, connecting with young people, their aspirations. We have to make democracy works, you know. So what we do in a micro scale in Malaysia is that when this coup happened is that we look at our political system in Malaysia. Where were the weaknesses? Where were the failures? Those are the area of reforms needed. And so we took this time of lockdown to do research and then advocate. And now we are doing campaigns to push people to fix what's wrong with democracy in Malaysia. But I think we need to do the same globally. So I think that's all I need to say. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas. I think you articulate very well, you know, why, you know, how democracy has been failing the recent years in Malaysia. And as you said, you know, several years ago, we have the very impressive democratic wave, you know, from Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Malaysia was peak, you know. So really good evidence, you know, we can change political systems through the peaceful election, you know. But somehow what is happening now is not very positive. And so we need to really learn the lesson, you know, as Basil put, you know, the critical questions. So let's continue our reflection around the 5 questions posed by the Basil. So now let's move to Thailand. I think Chatupak was one of the youngest, the laureate of the Gwangju Prize for Human Rights. He's speaking Thai, and then we have a Don from Thailand who is going to help us as an interpreter. Don,
you want to interpret now? Anselmo,
you are driving now. Wow.
I'm driving now, but I'm not sure Chatupak can speak or not because he used a phone also. But I saw he doesn't have the function that he can speak. But anyway, I'm here, I'm listening, and then I will keep him summarized. But I'm not sure he can speak now or not. I saw he used the phone. He don't have the function that he can speak. You can check ไทยพูดได้ไหมครับ ไม่รู้อ่ะ I'm not sure maybe he's now. Anyway, I summarize to him, and if he had any suggestion, I will give it to you later email, no? And I also driving. Okay. อ๋อไม่ได้ยินอ่ะ I cannot.
Anselmo, you're muted. Anselmo, you're muted.
Okay, Dawn. Okay, so I don't want to.
Yeah, Anselmo.
Okay, you can convey any message from him, but I
Okay.
don't want you to speak while you are driving. Okay, so when you are okay, so let us know. So let's proceed. We are concerned about your safety first. Safety first.
Okay,
let's-
I keep later, na?
Yeah, okay, so keep us informed, when you can speak. And then Joanna Carino.
Oh, yes.
Could you please briefly introduce and speak?
Good evening, fellow laureates. It's good to be with you as we form this network of Gwangju human rights awardees. So this proposal to build a network is really welcome, in as much as there is really a need to build greater solidarity and support in our continuing struggles as human rights defenders and for democracy, justice, and peace. Today, under conditions of pandemic and economic depression, there are grave threats to democracy and human rights, I think, in all of our countries. And that's why there is a need to carry on with the spirit of the Gwangju Democratic Uprising as we continue to work in our own countries, and also as we strive to provide solidarity to the just struggles of others across our borders. Now, in the Philippines, under the watch of the President Rodrigo Duterte, the human rights situation has really deteriorated. The government has weaponized the COVID-19 pandemic for greater repression and fascist attacks against its critics. Early into the pandemic, the government hurriedly passed the anti-terror law of 2020, which is now being challenged in the Supreme Court for its blatant unconstitutional and repressive provisions, such as warrantless arrest, detention without charges up to 24 days, freezing of assets, and the like. Under the watch, and these are the latest quantitative figures, there have been 394 extrajudicial killings under the presidency of Duterte, 493 frustrated extrajudicial killings, and 18 enforced disappearances. Numerous charges have been filed against activists and human rights defenders, such that there are currently 703 political prisoners under detention. Many of the main leaders of peasant organizations, workers' unions, youth organizations have been extrajudicially killed. And just this past months, there has been a rise in raids and extrajudicial killings, planting of evidence, and then the filing of trumped-up charges. Now, I am an indigenous people's rights activist, and in the Cordillera, the chairperson of my organization was filed with the trumped-up charge of murder in a place that he has never been to, and the shoot-to-kill order was issued in the event that he would fight back. He had to seek sanctuary in fear of his life while urgent legal motions were prepared. So, indigenous peoples in my country are very vulnerable to these fascist attacks. The first case under the anti-terror law was filed against 2 indigenous Aita tribesmen in Zambales after they had exposed the torture that they suffered at the hands of the military. There was a massacre of 9 indigenous Tumandok in Panay who were opposing the construction of the destructive Halaur mega dam. The self-determined indigenous Lumad schools in Mindanao have been forcibly closed down. Teachers and students have been filed with trumped-up charges of kidnapping and imprisoned. The National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict, which was set up has been rapidly red tagging and terrorist labeling all forms of opposition, even the community pantries set up by civic-minded citizens to feed the hungry in the light of inutile government response. The human rights situation in the Philippines is so bad that an international civil society initiative, Investigate PH, has been organized to bring this to the attention of the United Nations and the international community. And that's why, like the rest of you have said, it is very important during these trying times when governments are weaponizing the pandemic for us to be able to provide solidarity with each other across our borders. Because if we are not able to bring our issues to the wider knowledge of the international community, then you will have to be doing the fight in your own country. Now, the human rights movement in the Philippines is quite dynamic. I mean, our different sectoral organizations and even in the different provinces, we have strong human rights organizations. However, the attacks on human rights defenders are really also so grave. And that's why currently that initiative of Investigate PH, which is an international solidarity initiative of advocates all over the world, who are now doing their own hearings, it's still ongoing. And the results of this investigation are being submitted to the United Nations, International Criminal Court, and the like. So I agree with the views that some of you have raised. It is actually very important, especially as we grow old. I have been a human rights defender all of my life, but of course we are reaching the end of our life. It is very important that we really reach out to the youth, since they will be the ones to continue the struggle for human rights and democracy. And in terms of communicating, it's very difficult under conditions of pandemic. We really have to learn the new technology, and we have to take advantage of the new technology, because otherwise there is so little venues for us to be able to communicate with each other. And so in closing, it is good to meet all of you. I have been a recent awardee in 2019, and therefore I haven't really met the rest of you yet, but it is good to be in this forum with you. And I hope that through the network, we will continue to support each other in our struggles. Thank you and good evening.
Okay, thank you, Joanna Carino. So you are the last one before coronavirus. So
yes, I was able to go to Gwangju.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was able to go to Gwangju.
Yeah. So you're very lucky, no? Okay, so thank you very much. So now I'd like to invite the next one in my list, Irina from Indonesia. Are you in the room? It's a choir group. Maybe not in the room. And then the Bejo Untung, the laureate of Gwangju Prize for Human Rights 2020, 1 year after Joanna. Seems there's a connection problem. I'm sorry. Okay, so now we have completed the list of speakers. So I'd like to, this was not in the agenda. As I mentioned, we have the 6 students, new generation. So I'd like to invite 1 or 2 from the next generation to respond to your sharing and speeches. So we have a 6 person here, 1 from Thailand, 2 from Indonesia, 1 from Philippines, 1 from Japan, and 1 from Turkey. So Rasi, Hasim, Ayu, would you like to respond? So I want to make it a little bit the intergenerational dialogue, if you don't mind. Anybody want to respond? Bong is the activist working on migrant issues from Philippines, but he's studying the main university. Bong, would you like to share 1 or 2 minutes comment on behalf of the next generation? Okay, can you come over here? Come here so you can see, so people can recognize you. Okay, come here. Yeah. Can see here. Yeah.
Hello everyone. My name is Bong. I am from the Philippines, and so I'm coming from the church sector. I've had an experience working with the National Council of Churches in the past before I became an international missionary with the United Methodist Church. And being here in Gwangju since this afternoon has made me reflect on how democracy is. Someone mentioned in one of the sessions this afternoon that democracy is a process. So to me, that means that democracy is never static, meaning it changes its form, it changes its quality, and we take inspiration to all of you who have shared different situations or different struggles to achieve a better form or a better quality of democracy. Philippines right now is in a very difficult situation under autocratic rule by the President Duterte right now in his administration, but as you know, are always in danger and undergoing even mental health stress, which is very constant, and I really feel for them. Sometimes there was this migrant guy who asked me when I was having lunch with them, like, "Hey Bong, are you an activist?" He asked me. And sometimes it's hard for me to say that, yes, I'm an activist, because, you know, like, it's very different, because being here in Korea, somehow, how to say that, life here is more convenient than in the Philippines, and organizing in here is also very different. So I want to say yes, but at the same time, it's hard to say yes. But yeah, I mean, coming from the church, I think I stand by our call to address the needs of those who are most vulnerable, regardless of, you know, how difficult that will be. So I think I'm going in circles here, but what I wanted to say is that thank you for all of your inspirations, you who have all gone before us. And I hope that we could be as an effective advocates and activists like you now that we are students. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bong. May I invite also Ayu from Indonesia. Unfortunately, two laureates from Indonesia, they couldn't make it. So instead, I want to invite the next generation. So Ayu, please come to say a few words. Say.
Hello, thank you for having me, Anselmo, in here. And my name is Ayu. I'm from Indonesia. Actually, after I attend this Gwangju Forum, I just have too much things that I have to understand more. But the things that I understand that the first one is we're living in a democracy, but somehow there is an autocratic system in it, especially in Indonesia. Indonesia is a democracy system. We use it, but somehow our presidency, our government just press the freedom of expression as well. So yeah, in order to reduce all the authoritarianism in a whole new world, the first thing is we have to increase the democracy as well in order to achieve peace, justice, and human rights. That's all that I can share to all people here. Thank you for having me once again.
Thank you. Thank you, Ayu. So now I'd like to one more person. He's from Thailand. As you know, Chatupak, he couldn't make it, but he's a Plasi. He's also as young as Chatupak. So on behalf, instead of Chatupak, you can speak from your generation in Thailand about democracy.
Good evening everyone สวัสดีพี่อังแล้วก็สวัสดีพี่ดนด้วยนะครับแล้วก็ I'm Basil from Thailand. I was journalist for 5 or 6 years before, and I love some statement of the panelists of this session that said about young generation just interest in the issue or new topic or how to advertise that topic broadly or widely, but they don't interest in or they don't consider in the grassroots enough. That I think sometimes it's real situation in my country. So someone said that the demonstration in Hong Kong, in Thailand and Myanmar is like a circulates as a circle, starting with demonstration, raise the issue, and advertise that each issue among society, and was repressed by the government power or state power, and finally it failed. So I have some question to ask everyone: that is it real? The democratization in Thailand and Myanmar is gonna be failed like Hong Kong, or what is happen next in the dynamic of democratization in Southeast Asia, especially in Myanmar, because everyone consider about it too much, and for me too. So a lot of panelists is activists who have more experience. So I wanna ask everyone that is it gonna be the same circle like Hong Kong demonstration? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Basil. So he's also challenging us. He's posing questions like a Basil, you know. Basil said, compared to 20 years ago, the situation has been failing, you know. Why? You know? So we raised that question, try to answer also that the question. And so he's asking, recent years there has been uprising in Hong Kong, Thailand, and now the Myanmar struggle going on, you know. So is it real? What will happen? You know, what can you do together? You know, so this is a practical question raised by the new generation. So now, time we have only the 10 minutes left, and unless we want to make an additional comment, I'd like to invite 3 persons to give us the closing remark. First, Basil. So you raised 5 important questions, and then I don't know whether you can give us a bit some how we can continue to reflect on the question, at the same time take action together as a response to the question. And then lastly, Angkhana and Sushil as a new co-chairs, kind of what can you do together as the chairperson? Maybe you can give some closing remark. Okay, Basil, would you like to take a floor briefly?
Just very shortly, I think the area to begin is examining our own local histories, that within our own context, how did certain democratic movements arise, and what factors within our setup contributed to turning towards authoritarianism. I can tell you from the point of view of Sri Lanka, it is on one factor. It is because we thought democracy is about parliament, and we forgot that the entire system of administration of justice is the foundation on which the human rights and democracy stands. We let these institutions to die. That was the first area that the authoritarian people attacked. They created powerless judges. That was used in order to make the parliament powerless. And then the authoritarian people, they took over the whole power. So virtually today, 1 or 2 people and very corrupt elements, the level of corruption is also very high. Not only authoritarian. Authoritarian is not just a word, but what is happening is stealing of national resources. the enormous amount of corruption, the abuse of power for very petty reasons. Now, the destruction of the civil service and the bureaucracy. When you don't have these things, how can you have democracy? So just to demand democracy, but not to understand the structural problem. We have to make our efforts to go, first of all, to have a thinking, thought processes, to develop our thinking. Oh, why? What is wrong there? You know, for me, Myanmar did not come as a surprise. I have worked continuously on Myanmar. I knew that the democratic government is very weak. Still, the power was in the hands of the military. So one point or the other, the military, if they wanted to come back, they could come back. Because the basic structure is one that can be run only by the military. They run the structures. There's no civilian structures. Democracy is when civilians take over the main functions. Civil service is run by civilians. Policing system has to be a civilian system. The parliament supervises that civilian system, and the judges play a powerful role. These things, unfortunately, did not become major problems of concern for human rights movement. I think we should now make a serious effort to see what are the, in developed countries, these things are there for 300-400 years. So they couldn't understand when they introduce elections. In Cambodia, they just introduce an election. What happened? Now for 97% of the people vote for a particular party because there is nothing to resist. The structural resistance to authoritarianism, it is not there. So structure building, and these are things that either people who are concerned with human rights get knowledge, get improve their capacity with the help of others, or it is not there in our society. It is so easy to disrupt our society. See what has happened to Philippines or to the Bangladesh. Chief Justice can be dismissed just overnight. Entire the system of judges just serve the system. And above all, in our countries, the policing is the most corrupt sector in our society. You think we can have a good democracy and a bad policing? Why don't we go to common sense? Can we have an enormously bad policing system and a good democracy? So these are questions we should ask more. We must be, first of all, our gathering should be more, create opportunities for young people and other people to think and make up their mind on issues and then fight. Otherwise, at the end of the fight, you can put a government for a short time. That government will go away. That we did that in Sri Lanka. 2 years ago, people put a government. Within 1 year, that government is the most unpopular government because they are continuing with the same thing. These are a bigger theme, but what I'm introducing is we must understand the structure of authoritarianism, and we must fight the structure, not only violations. This much of killings, this much of torture, this much. So we protest. This is not enough. We must go to the issue, why, by what structure this is done, and by what way. And if you educate that to the people, people will find their way to fight it. And we learned that from Korea. We have an example. The Korean situation was as bad as our situations in many of these countries before 1990s. That Korea was also economically very poor. When Sri Lanka was at the highest per capita income, second only to Japan, all these other countries around were very poor. Today, we are among the poorest because we did not know people did not know how to guide their democracy, how to get involved in the democracy. We wait for leaders for full education with that more in-depth knowledge, not propaganda. So that's, I mean, I don't want to go beyond that because I know the time is limited.
Okay, thank you very much, Basil. Once again, I think as you rightly said, we need to tackle urgent issues. At the same time, we need to have a historical perspective to address structural problems. So for that, I think we need a stronger solidarity network and also deeper reflection with a concrete strategy. Thank you again. So now, may I invite Angkhana to share your closing remark as a co-chairperson?
Thank you, Anselmo. I think that I agree with Basil that we have to break down the structure of like authoritarianism, and I think in many countries similar to Thailand, there's a lot of law and regulation that break down the rule of law, and I think that I do believe in people, and I think that power of people can break down that wall. And may I raise for some example for example of the mother of the Plaza de Mayo in Buenos Aires, that when their children disappear and they protest, I think that they protest in very peaceful means, and at the end, people try to more and more, and it can finally it can stop impunity, and it can make change. I totally believe in the new generation. I think it's not easy, but I think that together we can make it. Maybe it not come in a couple of days or couple of years, but I think that we have to tolerance, we have rights to resistance, whatever we think that is against democracy and human rights. I think that I'm quite optimistic now. And if you say that there's a lot of barriers, so I think it's too much for us to handle and to cross it. But I'm very optimistic, and I think that little by little we can do that. I have some recommendation to the new generation. From my experience, I think that some of the new generation, they not want to work with the government. They not want to engage in politics and want to engage with the civil servant or whatever. But I think that we have to work with them if we want to change the system. If we only on the road shouted, so we cannot do that. And now there are many people, more and more victims that still are suffering. And I think that one thing that we should support them. And this is my thought. And for all of my life, I'm very patient, I'm very tolerant. And yeah, and I still have hope. And anyway, I think that I'm looking forward to work with all of you. And I think that maybe in a couple of months, maybe we can see some progress, some achievement. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Angkhana. So now, Sushil, your closing remark, please.
Thank you, Anselmo. I have listened attentively all the interventions, and I take it as a guide to us, including Angkhana. So we'll try to do our best, I think, in the future to advance what the friends had said. I fully agree with what a friend from Barsi said, that sometimes we talk about the rights, but we just undermine the needs of the people. So where the needs and rights, they come together, and how to balance this, that is also a challenge to us. And as Basil was saying, of course, where we are lacking, why democracy, we see the, I mentioned in my speech that demagogue, we are making demagogue through a very so-called very democratic process. Election, parliament, all the, pillar of the democracy. And how come the state will be democratic if the pillars are not democratic? The judiciary, the legislative. Legislative is just like becoming a ritual. Of course, parliament session is not suspended here in Nepal. Still, after a few days, there was parliament. Again, there will be parliament. But it has become the rituals. And the judiciary has also have the same fate. Like in India, we have seen that the Chief Justice, the next day of the retirement, he is nominated as the member of the upper house by a political party. So this has, why it is happening, but only this is not the history telling, why it is happening. We have to analyze, we have to examine the cause, as Basil was saying. So I think we need to give our human rights movement a new perspective. I think so, and that is all what you have said. It's all valid, and let us work together to change the world and the meaning of the democracy, how to make it really a democratic democracy. Thank you very much.
Sushil, so with these two closing remarks, I'm going to close the meeting with the two announcements. One, Adil, please send me in writing your proposal for amendment to the declaration so we can add the first
tomorrow morning.
And then, yeah, please. And the second one, and then I will send to Joanna for your editing. And then the two chairpersons will share the final one for everybody. Second one is, as you know, this is a day 2 of Gwangju Democracy Forum. We have 3 more days to go. And last day, the Friday, we are going to adopt Gwangju Democracy Agenda, which is a compilation of all the recommendations from over 20 parallel sessions. And some of you directly involved in the parallel sessions. So we have a 2 action agenda. One is our own declaration, which you adopt today. So we'll translate declaration into concrete action plan with the help of May 18 Foundation, with the additional guidance, and also Gwangju Agenda for Peace. No, not for peace. Gwangju Democracy Agenda. These are the action agenda. So at least 1 year until we meet next year. So let's build our solidarity around this action agenda, and also feel free to share your ideas and proposals to May 18 Foundation so that we can have a very concrete action plan. And also, meanwhile, as I said, in Gwangju May 18 Foundation, working very hard to establish democracy fund, to support concrete initiative in your country and also in the region to tackle the structural problem, as many of you mentioned. Okay, so let's continue. And also our new generation. And also yesterday we had a meeting of the mains, Songgo University, over 150 activists who studied together in Songgo University, and also who visited Gwangju, so they understand and also they practice Gwangju spirit together with you, So we have the person like you, the laureates of Gwangju Prize for Human Rights. At the same time, we have a young activist. So let's to build together this type of intergenerational solidarity as well. So thank you once again for your input, and then keep safe, and then let's keep in touch in the Zoom or the SS for the time being until we meet the face-to-face next time in Gwangju. So let's give a big hands to everybody, especially the May 18, the foundation staff. They stay until the 9 o'clock to prepare all this Gwangju Democracy Forum and also Summit. Okay, thank you. So let's take one final photo. You remember, show our 3 fingers to support democracy struggle in Myanmar. So we'll take a photo, okay? So the one of staff will take a photo. Can you show your three fingers? Three fingers. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you. Okay, good evening. Okay, bye-bye.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Bye-bye.
Good evening.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Stay
Bye-bye.
safe. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.